Well, this is the first video version. You are listening to, it's the first public video version. I've had a few on Patreon. But I'm going to start doing it this way from this interview on. So, as you know, the guest is Eliza. It was fantastic to talk to her. It was our first time actually meeting and speaking, but we covered a ton of great stuff. We cover touring in the States, we cover touring in Europe, a bunch of stuff in Canada, talking about writing when you're younger. Uh, I know I've had a few guests in the past who have talked about writing when they were in middle school, and that's what Eliza and I talk about here as well. And just a bunch of really good memories from a great person and great artist. So I hope you like it. Hope you like this new video format. It's the way the medium is going. So I'm Alex Southey, and this is your worst song. Thanks. Fuck. All right. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Eliza. I appreciate it. We've been talking around you coming on for a little while, and then I was disorganized and finally got around to having you on. So I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, happy to be here. Thanks. Thank you.
Absolutely. How was your day so far?
It's been a good day. I have the day off from my day job. I'm apartment hunting, so I went and looked at a place and yeah, got some groceries, made lunch. It's been a very
Nice.
nice day.
That's a very adult day. Uh,
Thank you so much.
can I ask what your day job is?
Yeah, I'm working two jobs right now. One is at a cafe, and then the other one is like I'm working on the line as a cook at like a brunch place.
Cool. Which do you prefer?
That's a good question. I like both for different reasons. I kind of like came of age making coffee, so it feels like second nature. It's like really nice and easy. And then
Yeah.
I love to cook so much, but I haven't done it a ton professionally, so it's been like a big learning curve. But
Right.
it's been satisfying. I can make
Is
all kinds of eggs now really well.
is it pretty recent that you got that job?
Yeah, it's a place that I actually used to be a barista at, and then I just stayed friends with the boss and needed a job for the summer, and they needed a cook, so I jumped in. Yeah.
Is there anything that you've made that you were like, I didn't even know this was on the menu. I didn't even know this existed. How am I going to do this? Because everybody knows for brunch, it's like, okay, maybe scrambled eggs or toast or whatever, but then
Yeah.
it can be pretty fancy.
It can be pretty fancy. I mean, we do have like a fixed menu, and a lot of people are like ordering outside of that. So I haven't encountered anything too wild, but there have been some like intense mods for sure. Like
Okay. Like
cream
what? What comes to mind?
omelet, like egg whites only,
Uh,
just pepper, no salt, like smoked
Whoa.
salmon, egg white omelet, just like creepy stuff like that, where you're like, dude, get the classic breakfast. Like, why are you?
Yeah, exactly. Get the hearty breakfast, okay? Just get the first
Yeah,
thing on the menu every time. It's easy for everyone.
yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Have you ever read any of Anthony Bourdain's books? Because I feel like he talks about being a line cook a lot and the good parts and the bad parts.
Yeah, I haven't read any of his stuff, but I am very familiar. Like I've seen his show
Okay,
and
yeah.
seen him in interviews and stuff. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Well, if you end up reading Kitchen Confidential, which is like the book that made him famous,
Mhm.
it's all just basically shit talking being a line cook and how rough it is and stuff. I'm sure it's
That's
a little
awesome.
better these days than it was in
Yeah.
like grungy 1980s New York, but
Oh my God. Yeah, I can only imagine.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the stories are like, "Oh yeah, I went down to Hell's Kitchen to score some drugs for all of us on our lunch break and then we use those to
Yeah,
continue." Yeah.
that's really funny. Yeah, I feel like my job in life right now are far from that. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. At
I'm
least
basically
public.
the Anthony Bourdain of Toronto, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, well, do you think just getting sliding into music a bit, do you think those jobs are the types of jobs that leave you time for stuff like that kind of like you hear about actors are baristas on the side or servers because they can kind of
Mhm.
choose when they're going to be working. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with both these jobs, I'm really lucky in that they're flexible and they know I'm a musician, and I'm able to take time off to tour and stuff, which is really great. Uh,
Damn, that is, I feel like rare.
It is rare, and I've really lucked out. And they're also like I always work morning and day jobs just so I know my nights are off for shows and rehearsals and stuff.
Exactly. Do you, I know obviously you make your own music, which is why you're on here, but do you play in other bands or do you do anything
Mhm.
like that? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I play in a few other bands right now, or sort of. I feel like I have a group of friends here in Toronto who we sort of all like play in each other's bands on a
Hmm.
rotational basis. Avalon Tushany and Louis Short and Pool Blood and Kyla Marlena.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
kind of
Awesome.
playing in each other's bands.
Kyla, that's so funny. I moved up to Markham just now, but for the last 2 months I was living basically less than a block from where Kyla works.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which was so funny because we ended up speaking, and then I was like, actually, I think I've seen you online, and it was from following you,
Oh no way.
which is such a Toronto's community is so small. Like it
Yeah,
really feels small. It's bizarre.
yeah, big
Um,
time. Yeah, Kyla's awesome though. She we actually met because we were working at the same cafe, and it came up that she also played cello, and then the rest was history. So now our band is like double cello.
oh, so you play cello as well? I didn't realize that. Is
Yeah,
that your main instrument?
yeah, I would say like bass guitar and cello are sort of my main.
Okay. Okay. I feel like I knew about bass guitar, but not cello. Okay. Wow. So when did you start learning cello?
I started learning cello when I was 9 years old.
Wow. And
Yeah,
was that a you coming to your parents being like, cello is speaking to me, I need to play it? Or was it your parents going, let's give her a skill and see, maybe she'll appreciate it later?
yeah, more the latter.
Yeah.
But I like the former is kind of fun. Like what 9 year old is like, now I play the cello. But
Yeah,
you know, maybe
exactly. The very
like
self-possessed 9-year-old, if that was
father,
the
I've
case.
decided to take up the cello.
And you know they would say it that way. It wouldn't be dad, it would be father. I've
Yes.
decided. Yeah.
But cello is giving like father.
So when did you start playing publicly? Not just cello, but your music.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I guess like growing up playing the cello, I was like in lessons and we would do recitals and stuff. But do you mean like performing my own music?
Uh, I mean, yeah, I guess my question was open-ended. Why don't we start with cello, but then yeah, I'm curious about as your music as
Uh,
you. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, I would do like cello recitals at school and stuff. And then in like middle school and high school, I had some bands with my friends that were sort of like funny, fun rock bands where I would like play bass. I'm really lucky because my dad's a bass guitar player, so he like taught me
Oh,
how to play growing up.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really sweet. So I just had access to like a bass and an amp and like someone to teach me how to play. And classic like high school bands, everyone's looking for a bass player,
Yes.
especially with like their own gear.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody wants to be either a singer or a guitarist, I guess, when they're in.
Yeah,
Typically,
it's weird. The
that's
bass is like the coolest one. It's really strange.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's so interesting. Okay, so then that was how cello started, and then you started doing uh in middle school. I've asked this a few other people who said that they had bands that young. What do you write about in middle school?
Well, I wasn't really writing the songs in middle school. I was like playing bass in the band
Mm,
of someone else who was sort of writing the songs. But yeah, it is such an interesting time in one's life to be like making art because we're
exactly.
literally like 12.
Exactly. Your
Like
life is
what?
so small. Like, what have you
Yeah.
experienced theoretically? Yeah,
Yeah. But I feel like it's a lot of like emulating artists that you idolize.
absolutely.
And we were sort of like into classic rock. So it was sort of like it had like a Stevie Ray Vaughan, like sort of like a
Oh, it was very blues rock leaning.
yeah, yeah, because the guitarist was super into blues. But then the drummer and I were sort of into like a lot of different stuff. So we brought other influences into it. It was sort of all over the place in like a hilarious and chaotic and like hopefully charming way. But
Yeah.
yeah, it
I'm
was
sure it was
definitely
charming, at least to your parents, you know?
yeah, for sure.
Where did you play? Did you ever play publicly or was it like a garage band, very literally?
Yeah, well, like we played at the school like assembly
Wow, that's pretty
talent
cool.
talent nights and stuff. And then I guess later, like we carried on as a band into grade 9, and then we started playing like the all ages venues in Toronto, like the Concord and like the Big Bop and the Reverb and like those places.
Wow. So what was that like? Because I came to playing music publicly late. I was like 25 when I started.
Mm, wow.
So yeah, so what is that when you're playing? all ages and you feel like you're downtown. You probably were feeling like,
Uh,
wow, we're pretty adults, aren't we? You know?
Totally, yeah. I mean, I don't think I took it seemed normal, but I don't think I took it for granted. Like it was really special. Like I think about those times so often and I'm so grateful for them because it was like such a unique and amazing experience to be able to play actual shows at that age because you learn so
Exactly.
much. Yeah.
You learn, yeah, there's so much that you just have to learn from doing rather than reading about or hearing about. So does
Yeah.
that mean that you were playing on bills with other similarly aged groups or what?
Yeah, yeah. Like we weren't really playing with like adult bands very much or at all. It was mostly like other high school bands or
Okay,
whatever.
okay.
But it definitely felt really cool when like we were in grade 9 or 10 and we were playing with like the grade 12
Oh
band.
yeah.
That
That
was
could
an adult band to us and we were like
the age difference, even though it's 4 years, feels like 10 or 15.
it really does. Like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, those 18-year-olds have it all figured out. I'm a puny 14-year-old, you know?
Big time.
That's how
Yeah.
it used to feel in elementary school too. Our elementary school went up all the way to grade 8. So
Hmm.
some assemblies, you'd be like the little grade 3 at the front, and you turn around, and it almost felt like you turn around, and all the grade 8s at the back were like smoking, and like they had their arm around people and stuff. It was great.
I really
Uh,
relate to that. Yeah. That is very real.
so were you always based around Toronto growing up, or where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up pretty downtown, like around the corner from Queen and Bathurst, where like the Big Bop and the Reverb and stuff were.
That's downtown. That is
Yeah,
downtown.
pretty
And
down.
good for a musician. Can you tell me about, well, part of what I was getting at too is I started late, so I don't know about some of these venues. So tell me about Concord. Tell me about what you just referenced as well.
Yeah, so the Concord was on Bloor. I think now it's like that place called Baseline or like the Piston, or it's like right
Oh,
around
well, I
there.
know Piston. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And it was great. They had like a little stage in the back and they would just host all ages shows. And I guess they were like pretty early on in the night, and then maybe they would have like a real show
Yeah.
after or
Gotcha,
something.
gotcha.
But then the Reverb, do you know about the Reverb?
No, so where was that?
That was on the southeast corner of Queen and Bathurst. I think it's like a furniture store now, like
Okay.
EQ3 or something. Yeah, but it was like this brick building that was painted purple, and it had like three different venues in it. One was the Big Bop, one was the Reverb, and then there was another one on the third floor. And it was sort of like very ska centric, but they had like a lot of different things going on, and it was
That,
like they were licensed, but they would also do all ages shows.
so how does that work? Do they just hide the bar when that's the case, or they don't open the bar kind of thing?
I think the bar is open, but you get like carded at the door, and then you get an X on your hand if you're underage or
Ah,
something.
sure, sure. Okay, I've heard
Yeah,
of methods like that. This
yeah,
must have been a really big building to have three venues in it.
yeah. It was huge. It was like
Yeah,
a
wow.
story. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they tore it down or if they just renovated it, but yeah,
Damn. Okay,
yeah.
well maybe from there we can get into what I usually ask first, which is what is your best gig memory?
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we've opened up this door to like my high school
I know
days.
exactly. So if you want to give a few answers like high school you and then young adult you, then go for it.
Yeah. I remember we played, okay, so I had this band called Green Eggs and Sam
That's an
in high
awesome
school.
name.
It was awesome. And it was a three-piece and it was sort of like blues rock, but then I was playing like slippery fretless bass and like me and the drummer were really into like prog and like indie rock and
I
stuff.
got that from
Like,
fretless bass. You didn't have to
yeah,
say anything
say
else.
no more. You're really into like yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but then I was also really into like hip hop and stuff, and I would like freestyle sometimes.
What?
So it was like this sort of hilarious mishmash of like slip and sliding on the bass and then like blues rock and then like me rapping.
Low key, this sounds a bit Red Hot Chili Peppers, to be
Oh
honest.
my God, yeah, huge Chili fan. That was probably like my main influence like at that time, like
Okay,
between like
yeah,
12 and like 15.
yeah.
But anyway, we played the show at this place on Young Street. I don't think it's a venue anymore, but they had all ages shows, and it was just like I just have such fond memories. It was such a nice show.
And
Yeah.
were they well attended, or why was it a nice show?
Yeah, this one was particularly well attended and it just felt very sort of like heartening, and it was like almost our whole high school class came out, and we just felt so like cool and
Wow. So was your high school, maybe this is too big of a question to really get into, but that sounds to me like your high school, or at least your friends in high school, were extremely supportive.
yeah, it was
For
really
all of them to come out, like how many people, was it even friends of friends or just acquaintances where you'd be like, oh, that guy from science class is here?
kind of that, yeah. Like by
Huh.
everyone coming out, like it was probably like 50 or 60 cap,
That's
which
significant though when
then
you're,
it's like very cool. But yeah,
yeah.
I went to an arts high school, and like a lot of us were in bands and going out to see each other play, and it was really supportive for sure. Yeah, so that was very nice.
That makes a lot of sense. And then, so what about, more in your recent,
More on my that was
yeah.
it. That was my peak. And it's kind of been all downhill from there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it did seem really wonderful in a different way that's hard to recapture at that time, though.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But recently, I played, I think my last, or one of my last shows that I played in New York was really special. I love that city so much, and it was, yeah, just a good night. It was in Queens. We played at this place called Sundown. It's like a
Cool.
base bar. And yeah, it was just like sold out. Everyone was sort of locked in. The other bands were great. And yeah, it's just a special, special night.
Was it your first, whenever that was it your first time in New York or was, no?
No, I played in New York a couple times before. But it was my first time playing some of the new songs in New York, and also the first time playing as this like three-piece band lineup that we sort of cooked up for that tour.
So how recent, what time was that? Like what year?
This was like not this past summer, but the one before.
Oh, okay, okay. So still
Yeah.
relatively recent.
Hmm.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
What was it, a big tour? Like, did you go to other places as well as New York, or was it just kind of like we're gonna dip down to New York for one show?
It was a little tour. Yeah, I think that was the one where we did like Boston and Philly and DC.
That's
And
cool, sort of in Northeast.
well, yeah, yeah, we did that a lot because my guitar player lives in DC. So
Oh,
often myself and my other band member Avalon would like drive down to DC to start the tour, and then we would like tour up from there.
oh, that's smart. Wow.
Hmm.
Uh, damn. How do you even get into the position where your guitar player is living in not just another city, but another country?
That's a great question. Well, classically, we met on tour. His name's Jeremy Ray. He and our other friend AJ had a two-piece band called Dove Lady,
Hmm.
and they toured to Toronto back in like 2016, 2017. And I just met them that night. Like they were sort of friends of a friend who I got linked up with to put a show on.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those nights where it's like it was my birthday, and I was like really scared that no one would come out. So I like pressured my family to come out and was like, you guys need to buy tickets. Like this is a touring band and stuff. So my mom came and like brought all her friends, and it was really
Oh,
good. And I think they like blew their minds because they'd never heard sort of like it was like improvisational, sort of explosive, like hardcore jazz punk. It's sort of
oh.
like they were really such an amazing band. But yeah, so and then I was living with my mom at the time, and they like came and crashed and became friends with my mom, and it was just a very like tender time. And then we all just stayed buds. And then I wanted an American band to tour the States because it's way cheaper in terms of like visa stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
Because you
to
just like jump onto them, kind of, as opposed to having to sort everything out yourself if it's three Canadian bands, let's say.
yeah, like I still had to get a visa for myself and sort all that out, but it's like more and more money the more people you add to the band.
Ah,
Whereas if I just get
oh,
it
I
for
see what you're saying.
myself, yeah, then like if the other members are American, I don't need to pay for them to be on the visa.
Yes. Okay. Wow, that makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense. Okay.
yeah.
Damn. So how does that are they just a touring part of your band, but you write everything so you don't need them here all the time? Is that kind of how it is?
Yeah, well, I also asked Jeremy in particular because he plays guitar on all of my recordings, like by correspondence. So, like on my last record, "Staying Mellow Blows," he like did all the lead guitar and just like,
Gotcha.
so it made sense for him to be in the live band as well. And I
Yeah.
actually he was just in town a few months ago recording my new album that's going to come out soon. Yeah,
Woo.
yeah.
Awesome. Is there a date for that?
Yes, it hasn't been officially announced
Okay.
yet.
You don't need to say it then. That's cool, but that's exciting. Is it can I ask, is it this year or early next year?
It's early next year.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
people should look out for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's exciting. Where did you record it?
Just in and around Toronto, like in the way that I've recorded all my stuff in the past, sort of between my house and my collaborator Louis Short's studio and dining room on College and Euclid
Okay, I've
there.
heard of Dining Room. Yep, yep.
Yeah, it's like above Ted's Collision. We did the drums there.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm very curious, just getting back to that Northeast tour. Or it sounds like you've gone a few times, like you said. What of those sort of five or four cities you mentioned is your favorite?
Well, this seems like kind of a boring answer, but I am just so in love with New York. Like it's just my favorite city. I love it there. I love being there. I'll
It's
never
hard to
not
beat that.
size it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like? You said it's Sundown in Queens, is that's where you played in New York, right? So
Mhm.
something that I like to ask guests sometimes, especially if it's a venue that if it's in Toronto, a lot of people will already be familiar with it, but when it's in another city, people aren't, right? Something that if I remember, I like to ask is, what was the green room like? Was there a green room?
Hell no, there's no green room.
No.
Where do you think these places are that I'm playing?
I mean, I don't know. I've heard,
No,
I
I'm just
got
kidding.
some crazy answers about green rooms.
No,
That's
for
funny.
sure, for sure. I mean, I feel like this place, like, it's in Ridgewood. It's like sort of a hole in the wall, and it's actually called Cassette now. It used to be called Sundown, but it's like you go down into the basement, and then there's sort of like a separate venue down there.
Uh-huh, okay.
But it's probably like the cap can't be more than like 100 or like 150. But it's sort of
Sure.
like, there's like a little thing behind the stage to put like empty cases in, and that.
Exactly. It's just a little like basically they whittled out a wall and you just like slouch
Yes,
your stuff in. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, a
totally,
little
totally.
cave.
So then what about then I'll open it up. What it if you have been in a green room before,
Mhm.
what's one that stands out to you?
Oh, trying to think of like, oh, well, okay. Back in the spring, I toured in Europe and we played this place in Berlin called Schokoladen.
Wow.
And the green room is like, I think talking about caves sort of reminds me of this, but like sort of this like dank, like almost medieval basement room, like under the venue. But they
Except
also,
it might actually be because it's in Europe. So it
yeah,
could actually be
exactly.
medieval. Yeah, yeah.
Been there
Wow.
since, yeah. But I mean, the walls are like stone. I think they're stone,
That's
but
crazy.
they have bunk beds down there. Like they put the bands up down there
Ah,
as well.
I
Um,
love situations like that. It doesn't seem like there are too many like that, at least in Toronto or otherwise, but there's some in
yeah,
Montreal you hear about and things like that.
yeah. There's this great place in Quebec City called Pantoum.
Oh, okay. There's another place in Quebec City I was thinking of, but Pantoon. So well, first of
Yeah,
all, what does that mean in French?
I actually don't know. I've
Do you know?
never
Okay, yeah.
inquired.
Maybe it's not even a French word and it just
Yeah, who
sounds
knows?
French to me. Uh,
Pantoum.
Pantoum. So when was that?
I actually never played there, but for some reason my old band ended up crashing there when we played Quebec City because they have like accommodations for touring bands and they're
Oh,
very,
but wow, that's incredibly kind that
yeah,
you didn't even play there and
yeah,
they still let you. Wow, yeah.
yeah. It's really cool. It's like this multi-use, multi-story space. They have like recording studios, a venue, like a little apartment for bands to stay in.
Damn.
But yeah, it just reminded me of that because you're right that a lot of Canadian venues don't, it's not built into
Doesn't seem like it,
yeah.
which is too bad because I mean, I'm sure it's a hassle to set it up at first, but once it is set up, I think that would be really nice for a lot of you get more touring acts from other places, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Okay, well, those all sound like good memories.
Hmm.
Let's get into bad memories. What do you think what do you think is the worst gig that you played or worst gig memory?
Um, well, sometimes there are these shows on tour, especially when you're like out on the road in an area that you've never played before, where it's sort of like some real wild card stops where you like need to play to pay for gas, or it's like you need to split up the drive and you're like, okay, we'll stop in like rural Ohio and just
Uh-huh.
like search Bandcamp tags and like try to find someone to play a show with.
Well,
But yeah, that I think over the past couple years, there's only been a couple shows like that where it's like, you take a chance on a place, you know?
Uh-huh. And
And
so what was the worst result of that?
well, I won't name
Sure,
names,
sure, sure.
but uh, there was like one stop on this one tour that I was on with a friend of mine where like I think 5 or 6 people came and
Oof.
we got there and they didn't remember, like they had forgotten that the show was on that day.
Oh, there is
And
nothing more disheartening than showing up and with all
yeah,
your stuff and they're like, "Why are
yeah,
you here?"
totally,
Yeah.
totally. But it's also like when you're with your friends, it's sort of like you can laugh about it, and it is sort of like this funny, just like insane thing that's happening. And we
Yes.
didn't get paid, which is like it sucked. Like I think it was sort of like a door deal or something, but like the promoter was like backing out of the room after, and he was like, "Okay, so you didn't make any money, and like you can pack up and leave whenever you want. Like bye."
Oh my God.
We were like, "Damn, this is crazy." But they did give us some chicken strips and beer, so we that was the joke on the tour where it's like, "We'll play for 3 chicken strips and 2 beers."
I mean, at a certain point, if you're just at a like that sucks you weren't paid, but getting some food isn't so bad when you're not even sure what you're gonna do that
That's
night or
yeah,
whatever, right? So
no,
where
that's
did you
great.
end did you end up crashing with one of the bands that you sought out or what? How does that work?
Well, that night was actually it was bittersweet because the show was kind of bad, but then we
Hmm.
stayed with some really nice people that we're still in touch with, and they were like very
Oh.
gracious, and they sort of we were like, we wish you told us this earlier, but they were like, yeah, no one ever plays that venue, like it sucks, it's sort of like canceled, and they were like, next time you come, we'll like book you a sick show and blah blah blah. And we were like, okay, cool.
That's too funny. It is always funny when, yeah, people tell you after the fact, they're like, yeah, I saw
Yeah,
you playing there. What the fuck was the deal with that? And it's
yeah,
just like, I don't know.
yeah. It's like me, I had no idea.
So how
Mm.
about first impression? Obviously, New York, so cool. I agree. Um, but or maybe that's related to that. Like I've spoken with somebody else who was in LA regularly, and
Mhm.
LA similarly has this vibe. Part of it is just the history of so much pop culture is there and in New York, right?
Mhm.
So I think they just have this inherent vibe. Like New York and LA are two of the only cities where when I've visited, I felt like this is what it feels like in the movies. Like they actually are like this.
Yeah,
Unlike
totally.
a lot of other cities where they just kind of feel like this could be anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm curious what your first impressions were of New York or Philadelphia or what like
Hmm.
In New York, you inevitably have these preconceptions, but Philadelphia, you maybe know a little less. They have a famous football team, historically significant for
Yeah,
America. What and Always Sunny in Philadelphia are the only things that I would know about Philadelphia. So what was it
yeah.
like?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Philadelphia because I kind of had built it up a lot in my mind because a lot
Oh,
of music that I really love has been coming out of Philadelphia. Like that band Friendship and Body Meat and At, and like I just was so familiar with all these bands that are like in Philadelphia.
hmm.
So I was really stoked to go, and it was cool. I wasn't like let down or anything, but it was sort
Okay.
of um like another like normal city in a way that was
Okay.
great. But yeah, it was sort of this interesting like ooh, Philly, can't wait for Philly. It's gonna be like amazing. It's gonna be this magical thing. And it was in a lot of ways, but we just like got there and like played a show and it was cool. And I was like, okay, yeah, like normal. That's awesome.
Not life changing, but normal. It was just
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
yeah,
Well, that brings me to maybe another question, which is, do you even have enough time in these cities to really feel like, you visit? Like, what if you had a whole
yeah.
weekend and only played the Friday? Then maybe you'd feel like you saw Philadelphia, right?
That's the other thing. Like I say Philadelphia didn't blow my mind, but it's like that's because we rolled up to the venue, unloaded, played, got pizza around the corner, like crashed at the drummer of the other band's house and then like left at 9 a.m. to get to like Baltimore or something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, okay.
sort of like, and that was Philadelphia.
The pizza there is great.
Yeah, we
That's
actually
all you
got
know.
Philly cheesesteaks,
Ooh.
and it was good. I
I
mean, can't
think
be wrong.
I think when it's your first time going to these cities, do the touristy stuff. You've heard about Philly cheesesteak, whatever, get it.
Yeah,
Just see what it's like.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what?
um,
Yeah,
what was Baltimore like? I only know the wire for Baltimore.
totally. Baltimore was actually awesome.
Okay.
loved it there, and we really lucked out. Like we played, I forget the name of the venue, but it was like this sort of like art space that's run by all these different people, and it's like this sort of great like black box theater room with amazing sound, and then they have like a residency space across the courtyard, and it's all these like
Wow.
buildings. Yeah, that was like amazing. And we stayed with our friend who is from there and grew up there, and she just surprised us the next morning. She like took us on a tour basically. She was like, "All right, I'm showing you Baltimore." Like,
Oh, so that's so
all
funny. You
the
did get to see actual
yeah,
Baltimore. Oh, that's funny. So what
yeah.
were some Baltimorean things you did?
Well, we drove to the water and like walked along the water and went to this really cute coffee shop and sort of like drank our coffee, hanging our feet off the dock, and then
Hmm.
we went to this famous record store that I forget the name of, but it was great. Got some like $1 CDs for the car and like hung out.
Amazing.
Yeah, we drove around the art school campus there, which was really beautiful.
Cool.
Um, and yeah, it was just really cool to like see the city through the eyes of someone who was actually from there and was sort of
Yeah.
like, it's more than just the wire. Like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a unique thing for Baltimore because I feel like people recognize The Wire as an amazing show, but the
Yeah,
subject matter of The Wire is like,
yeah,
look how crime-ridden the city is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Huh. Well, this is related to sort of those things, but uh you're referencing bands you know in these different cities and whatever. I feel like it's obvious that people will know bands in different Canadian cities because we're so much more connected to them. How do you even find out about like, oh, this Philadelphia band is dope or Baltimore band or like, how are you
Uh,
stumbling across them?
I mean, I feel like once you even have your foot in the door a little bit, you sort of like, you're following each other on social media and you're like seeing what people are posting and like, oh,
Or
so
who they're playing with?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And just having friends there, like I feel like I made a couple friends in New York and then they sort of really showed me a lot of music that was like going on around there, like in the tri-state area or whatever. And
Hmm.
yeah, it really just starts like webbing out from there.
Exactly. Uh, so where else have you toured? So you said Europe. Now you've said the States. Is there anywhere else? Like, have you got a secret Mexico tour you're not telling me about or anything?
Oh my God, I wish. I would love, love, love to go to Mexico.
Yeah,
But I've never been. Yeah, not even like at
as it's
all.
just a trip. Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, what about any cities, bucket list cities in America? That's probably easier.
Bucket list cities in America. I mean, I would love to go west, like
Yeah, I was just gonna ask,
that's
have you done that?
yeah, I did with my old band Mauno. Like we toured all the way up to California and back for our last record, and that was really awesome. So I'd love to go back to like California and Washington, Seattle. Like it'd be great to go to all those places again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I've
yeah,
heard, yeah, who was it? Cole from Sham Family was talking about playing or Jesus Christ, I just got mixed up. You were saying Washington, West Coast. I was thinking he went to DC. Yeah, that's the same thing.
yeah,
But
classic.
yeah, classic. Jesus Christ. That's cool though. So you did make it all the way over to California, Washington. Did you do Oregon?
Yeah, we played in Portland on that tour. Yeah, we went all the way down to like San Francisco and then
Okay,
we drove up the coast like through the redwoods and stuff.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. It was so great. And then we took a ferry to BC, and then like went back across Canada.
You're living the life. This sounds
Yeah, that was
amazing.
really dreamy. I haven't been to the West Coast since playing in that band, so it's been 5 or so years, but I really want to go back. Yeah.
Pre-pandemic must feel like, okay, that was a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow, wow. Okay. This is so interesting. You're throwing a lot of interesting stuff at me. I'm not sure which avenue to go down. Uh I'm curious, I don't quite want to get into the song questions yet. Uh I would love to hear what songwriting is like for you. How does that begin?
I think more often than not, it begins with lyrics or like a melody.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I would say I'm more of like a writer than anything. So I'm always sort of because I always get inspired when I'm out in the world and I don't have an instrument in my hand
So you
necessarily.
have to write
So,
words, of course.
yeah, I'm like jotting stuff down. Or I get really inspired on tour as well as like, riding in the car or walking around a city or
I love the idea of starting that way, but every time I've tried it, I've found almost it feels more like I'm working backwards instead of
Mm,
forwards. So,
yeah.
because you know what I mean? Because I feel like if there's an underlying platform of music or a chord progression, it's actually easier sometimes to then come up with a vocal melody on top. And once you have that, then you know syllables or whatever, which is sort of what I want to ask you. Like when you're writing down lyrics first, are you still thinking about syllable count and stuff like that? So when you get to it later, it's going to kind of be in a rhythm,
I think, yeah, for the most part, yeah. But sometimes I'll just free write prose and then
sort
uh
of see how you can fit it.
yeah, like lay it over music or even like work it out syllabically, like derive things from it and work it into more.
Yes. Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely rhythmic for sure.
It's
Yeah,
rhythmic. Yeah. Well, that's the rapper in you coming out.
for sure. I'm still
Would you ever, jokes aside, would do you
no.
listen to hip hop and rap? No.
Yes, I do. I would never do it again.
I was just gonna say, would you release like an underground rap album?
Oh my God, imagine. No. I mean, sometimes I'll get drunk and freestyle with my friends, but like
Sure.
I'm not trying to capture it in any
Only
way.
your best friends are privy to that
Yeah,
talent.
but it is
Okay.
fucking sick.
Yeah. It goes hard, bro.
Yeah, it's really
That's
hard.
too
You'll never
funny.
hear it. It's hard as fuck.
What hip hop do you like? Does anybody stand out?
Um, what am I listening to these days? I mean, well, when we were talking about the high school days, I couldn't help but this is really nerdy, but like I just love Jurassic 5 so much. And
Oh,
like
I don't even know them. Are they Canadian or American or what?
no, they're American. But they just have some real hits like Quality Control, Concrete Schoolyard, just like amazing, amazing stuff. Yeah.
Okay. For those of I don't know how I'm going to edit it in the future, but we got cut off. So this is now the second half. I've asked the first two questions. We asked some other questions, and oh, you're frozen. Are we good? Okay. No, you're good now. Okay.
Part
Let's
two.
part two. Let's get into the third question then. What do you think is the best song you've released publicly?
The best song that I've written.
That you've released publicly.
Okay, great
So
question.
so
Hang on, I'm
yes,
just gonna.
written, but I want people to hear it.
Okay, yes, yes, yes. I'm gonna switch to data because I think my Wi-Fi is.
Sure. What were you on before?
I was on data. I think this is better.
This is better. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, great.
Wow, this
Okay,
is
that's
insanely better. This is so fast and everything. Oh, okay, all
there
right.
you go. You get what
Perfect.
you pay for.
Exactly.
Um,
Okay,
okay, best
yes.
song I've released publicly. I think, well, it's an interesting question. Because like I think for me, my favorite song that I've released is probably Walking Feels Slow.
Okay. So why that one?
I
Like,
think
how
I'm
are you interpreting best is maybe my question.
yeah, I think I'm just the most proud of it. It's sort of like a step in the direction that I've been wanting to go for a while. It's probably the most experimental song I've released publicly, like under my own name. And it was sort of collaborative with a friend of mine in a way that I really liked. Uh, yeah, and it sort of has this like meditative quality to it that I really relate to.
That's really interesting that it's your favorite in whatever way that means, but it's also something you haven't done very often, which is make more experimental stuff. So is that kind of an incline? Does that kind of mean that you're going to begin to head towards that because you've realized that you like that style? You're going to incorporate more experimental stuff, or do you want to keep it as kind of a once in a while and that's how it remains special?
Yeah, I think I'm not too sure yet. I think this album I am finished and I'm releasing early next year. It's sort of experimental, more uh it's like formally experimental and lyrically experimental, but not necessarily sonically so much.
Okay, so in that way, by sonically, do you mean production wise?
Yeah, like it's
Right.
pretty sort of straight up in terms of the choices of instruments and what they sound like and how they fit together.
Right. But it's
But
how you've written the song and how you're writing and singing that is what's experimental.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Whereas Walking Feels Slow is more, it's like modular synthesizer and like samples of me breathing between words that are stretched out and it's all like chopped up. Um, but yeah, yeah. So there are many different ways to be sort of experimental. And I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
I'm excited about them and utilizing them in different ways.
That's awesome. How do you even begin to think about stuff like that? Like specifically, just for example, emphasizing the breathing and playing around with that. Like, when does that idea come to your head?
Well, that is the collaborative. So that was actually my friend Will, who lives in Minneapolis, who thought of that and did that.
Oh,
We wrote that song. That's the only song on Staying Mellow Blows that's like a straight up co-write, co-production. Like we were just sending stuff back and forth. Like it started off as me sort of playing bass and like talking over it in this sort of jokey way. And then he like took my breaths and the resonant tones of the bass and made something very sort of like poignant and beautiful and sent it back. And I was like, okay, whoa, let's fucking go. I was
wow,
like,
that's
this is not
awesome.
funny anymore.
So is he more of he's more on the producer side of things, you'd say, or
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. But then he sent me back sort of this long experimental track that was like those between moments of my bass song that I'd sent him. And then I took that and chopped it up and sort of made like a form and then
Oh,
sang over it.
cool. It's like a productive version of Broken Telephone. You just like keep passing it
Definitely.
on and yeah. Oh, so how do the way you met this person is just the same way as you've met these other people from the States? Like either they're touring through here or you're touring through there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He has a project called Free Music and he got like thrown on a bill with my old
That's
account.
probably really hard to Google.
It is really hard to do. Yeah. And he
Yeah.
knows it. He knows
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Bless his heart.
Yeah.
He
Sorry,
also
continue.
he goes by restaurant music sometimes and also Cool Toad.
Okay. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, he's a legend. He's a legend.
Yeah.
But yeah, he played this show with Mauno in Montreal at Vitrola. I don't know if that's a venue anymore.
I don't know that either.
Yeah, it was like up all these stairs. But yeah, it was on like Thanksgiving Monday and like no one came and it was just really it was one of those shows that we were talking about where it's like
Yeah.
on paper the worst show ever, but it's actually hilarious and amazing and it brings you really close with the people who are also on the bill because you're just all so demoralized and also like
Totally.
yeah, it was really great. And he had this extensive setup that he carried up like 4 flights of stairs and
Oh.
he set up in the middle of the room. Like he was like, I'm not setting up on the stage. It's too like sad.
Because there were so few people, he had just figured, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a great attitude to have faced with that issue, I think.
Oh yeah, he killed it. And he gave like the performance of a lifetime and we were all just like crying, laughing, and we all like were totally in love with him by the end and we all became friends and it was great.
That's amazing. I think definitely, I mean, good experiences can bring people together, but commiserating really can bring people together.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Just like, isn't this shit? And everyone's like, yeah, and then you get to all laugh about it.
totally, totally. But somehow he sort of expertly worked that into his set. Like he was sort of improvising lyrically and like
Oh, really?
hyping everyone up and being like, "This show is crazy." We were all just like, "Wow!"
That's hilarious. That sort of makes me think of another question for you, which is, how do you handle? Because everybody kind of does it differently. Some people are almost try and be comedians in between songs. Other people are Van Morrison. I'm not even gonna say a single word. So,
Yeah.
what kind of where do you sit?
Um, I I aspire to be funny, but it is hard sometimes.
Sure,
And I do think that like with anything, but especially humor, if you're trying too hard, you're not gonna make it. So
absolutely.
I try not to have too many expectations of myself. But I do try to be present and I when I first started playing solo, I had horrible stage fright. And I just couldn't banter. Like I just play the songs. And there
Hmm.
is something like I don't
Mesmerizing or hypnotic in that?
yeah, like I don't dislike that approach, but it wasn't coming from a place of intention. It was coming from a place of fear. And I think people could like smell that on me. And I don't think
Mhm.
it was that graceful because of that. But I do think now I've become more comfortable and I'm finding a middle ground between like letting the songs speak for themselves, but also like I think a part of banter is like signaling that you're comfortable so that other people can kind of relax,
Great
which
point.
is important as well to just be like, yeah, I'm here with you. I'm enjoying this. Like everything's
No,
okay. Because there's nothing
totally.
more nerve wracking than like watching a performer who is really scared.
Oh,
You
no,
know,
it's
you're
so
like
it gives you
feeling for them.
exactly. Even if you're really empathetic and you're feeling for them,
Yeah.
it's like secondhand embarrassment. You just want to be like, it's
Yes.
oh God,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's so true. Even if you just do think about comedians, like I think if you go to a stand-up show and they're nervous and they're not really commanding, whatever that means,
Yeah.
you immediately lose faith in them. And it's like they're supposed to
Oh,
be
yeah.
sort of the captain, you know? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. So how was that? How is it slowly coming out of that stage fright? Because I was the same way, and then it's almost like you wake up one day and you're like, "Huh, I'm actually not that nervous anymore."
I think it's slow and it's gradual and it's exposure therapy. Like I just started playing. I remember I was talking to my old bandmate Nick from Mauno, and he had some really insightful advice that I think about to this day. Where I was like, "How do I like?" I was like, "I'm trying to get more comfortable playing shows, and I hate how I feel when I'm playing solo and blah blah blah." And he was like, "Do it a million more times." Like he was like, "Book yourself a bunch more shows and just do it." And I was like, "Yes."
Wow. And so that you
And I,
followed that
yeah,
advice.
yeah, I just started playing under my own name way more, and it was like clunky and hard and embarrassing, but every time it got a little better, and now I feel more comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, do you feel pretty confident now? Like I think you have to be psychotic not to be a little nervous before going on
Yes.
stage or whatever, but it's
Yeah.
probably healthy nervous now before it is paralyzing.
Yes, that is exactly right, and I relate to that a lot. I think now I get nervous, but I feel just able to be more present in the face of that, just because of having done it so much over the past few years.
Right.
Yeah.
This is sort of related to confidence when you're playing, especially when you're playing solo. Something I like when I play solo is if I wrote a song 2 days before the show and I know I'm playing solo, if I feel confident enough, I can play that song. You don't need to show it to bandmates. Is that like
Yeah.
something you like doing? Do you like having that freedom?
Yeah, but I will say I'm like an over preparer, and it's sort of
Oh,
how I like handle my performance anxiety. So I have rarely done that. But I have sort of there have been shows in the past. When I say play solo, like I do usually have a band backing me up, but it's like
I
my
see.
solo music. But
Yeah.
but I do play solo sometimes as well. And there is a freedom in that. But I think to sort of combat my nerves, I need to like meticulously plan the set and practice it a bunch so that it becomes like second nature so that I can kind of relax into it, you know?
I do know. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I just like I don't write set lists before I play my solo shows actually
that's
because
so awesome. How people do that. Yeah.
uh
Cool.
it's but it would make me nervous trying to remember everything. So it's just we're
Right.
different people, you know. I think it's just whatever
Yeah.
works for you, right?
Yeah. There have been times where I've been like, I'm gonna wing it and it's gonna be free. And then I just like get up there and forget everything. And I'm like, why did I think I could do that? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and especially if you've been drinking a bit or doing anything else, then it's
Oh
just
my
like
God.
it's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah.
I have this thing where it's like if I have one beer, I cannot play the guitar. Like it's strange. It's
That's
almost
good
like a
incentive to
thing.
not drink though.
Yeah, I don't really drink before I play anymore, like at all. But yeah, like cello fine, bass fine, keys fine. Something about playing the guitar, it's like I forget. I forget.
Wow. And by
At all.
guitar, do you mean bass guitar? Because that's what you're talking about, or do you
No,
mean
no,
guitar
like
guitar?
six string
Yes.
guitar. Yeah, bass guitar I can play in my sleep.
That's
Famous
awesome.
last words.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Book
actually
a
need to
show
do
where you
blackout.
sleep. Have you ever played a blacked out show where someone was like, "You were good"?
Oh my God, no. But I
Okay.
I always think of this story that my friend in Edmonton told me. He was like a promoter for years, and he was like, yeah, there's this bass player who was just always blackout drunk, but he was the best bass player in the world, like so good. And one time apparently he like stumbled onto the stage and just like started playing like with the band. And
Mhm.
then somebody just walked by and like flicked his amp on because it wasn't on. And he was just playing perfectly. Like
That's hilarious.
yeah,
Some people are like that. Some people are
I
like that.
know.
Wow.
Wow.
That bassist, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. No.
Yeah. And that was Flea.
Okay, well, let's get into the titular question, which is what is your worst song that you've released publicly?
Oh, such a fun question. Well, there's so many different ways to answer that,
Yeah,
but I guess I could just answer in the way that I answered the other one, which is like the one that I'm least proud of.
sure.
But there's a song on my first EP, Vinegar,
Hmm.
called "Oh No,"
Okay.
and it's
Oh
funny
no,
because
as in negative exclamation, like
yeah,
oh
yeah,
no. Okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, but no exclamation mark or anything. But
Okay,
that's the
gotcha.
idea. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's funny it's called that, but I mean, I'm still proud of it and I have no regrets, but it's just like one of the few songs that I have never and probably will never play live because I just don't feel connected to it anymore or something.
Hmm.
I find there to be something sort of like embarrassing about it, but I can't really put my finger on what it is. I think it's just like so of a time in my life that I am so past that I can't relate to anymore, which is kind of a good
Totally.
sign. Like I've grown and there's beauty in that. But yeah, it's funny because I was talking to my dad on the phone the other day and he was like, "You never play that song." Oh no, like I love that song. And I was like, whoa, crazy. And then I also have this friend in New York who really likes that song and he's always really bummed out that we don't play it. But I thought like I will never play it. I'm sorry.
It's so weird people's relationship to songs, like artists that, to their own songs, and then audiences because they don't have that inside context of that you feel like it's not you anymore, you know? Like
Yeah,
I have the same thing where they're like, "Oh, why don't you play that song?" And I'm like, "You even know that song? I have never
yeah,
talked about it, you know?" Uh,
totally.
so what other okay, that makes sense as an answer, but I'm curious how often you change. Inevitably, you're going to play the songs that are on the most recent album or release that you have released, right, for a show. But are there any that you've been playing almost your entire career that you're like, I still like playing it? I've changed its dress or personality, but it's still the song.
Definitely, yeah. I do that a lot because I have quite a rotating cast of people who back me up, like as my band,
Right.
and the vibe
Certain
really
setups.
changes.
Yeah, right, right. Mhm.
Yeah, like right now it's like two cellos and guitar, and then our guitarist Avalon is like playing kick and snare with their feet. And it's like other times it's been two cellos and drums, and other times it's been like bass, guitar, keys, and drums. Like so I think because of that, I always sort of cater the live show to the instrumentation and
Totally.
it's never really like even on the Staying Mellow Blows release tour, we were playing stuff from the last two EPs. Like we were just sort of like playing whatever songs we wanted to or that sounded good.
Yeah.
But I really like that keeps me interested in my own music, sort of like switching up the arrangements and bringing things back. And yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know how people don't do that. Like I just
yeah,
it's I feel like recordings are snapshots or moments in time. They don't need to be where the story ends. You know what I mean?
big time. Yeah. And it kind of bums me out to like try to make the live show sound like the recording. Like it's sort of
It's
uh
also a impossible
pointless.
task, nearly.
Yeah, and it is a different art form. Like
Totally.
I like that you say that it's a moment in time because a recording is a moment in time as much as a live performance.
Yeah. I mean, well,
Yeah,
this is such a high thought, but I thought this recently and I was like, record. It's a record of the experience of you recording it. It's not a
dude.
record, right? It's a record.
No, that it's so true. Yeah. No, I think about that stuff all the time and yeah, I really agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, anyway, okay, that's cool. I like well that is something that I usually ask is about the worst song is would you change its personality or switch something about it to revive it?
I don't know. No, I think because even though that's my style and it's what I do, I think with that song in particular, it's just like something about the lyrics, the form. It's like a keys dependent song. It's like a piano song. So it's
Mm,
like maybe that's the other thing. Like I don't play keys that often, or when I do, it's sort of this like falling apart Casio that I use that like wouldn't really be appropriate for that. But um yeah, there's just something inherent to what that song is that I don't want to revive. I don't want to reimagine it. Yeah.
totally. Sometimes there are just things where you go, no, I'm leaving that behind.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and maybe that speaks to actually what I like about it because I think the recording, like, captured what I wanted to capture with that song, and, like, the emotion lives in that time, in that record of it, and I don't want to revisit it, but that sort of means that maybe I captured it perfectly then and that
Yeah.
it could be done again. Yeah.
Yeah, you like the way it is. No,
Yeah.
that's a nice positive spin on it for sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also fuck
Well,
that song. I'll never play it again.
yeah, I was waiting for that, but also
Yeah.
fuck that fucking song. It's garbage. Uh, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Absolutely. What we normally do at the end is you just reintroduce yourself, and then state the name of the song again.
The
The
name
worst
of
song.
the worst song?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Love that.
Go
So
for it.
my name is Eliza Niemi, and my worst song is called "Oh No."
She's just turned on by being a mom, and there's nothing wrong with that. She likes falling in love and writing sad songs about when it all starts to go bad. Is someone that beautiful, really that beautiful, if everybody thinks so? I think you are, because when I first met you I said to myself, oh no, I'm in the place where we made love and waste. From the haste that we did it with, you're gone in case you awaken, you find your face too close to mine. You know, I wouldn't mind, but that's not what defines our love, is it? Or isn't it? I don't know. I can say I won't go, you know I can't say no. You woke up headed out, I woke up by myself, knowing you needed help. Thought I could do it well. Is someone that beautiful, really that beautiful, if everybody thinks so? I think you are, because when I first met you I said to myself, oh no, the course of true love never did run smooth. But is that about him, or is that about you? Yes, I'll admit I've always been confused, but why can't